They can ask what your business is in terms of where you're heading, but they can't ask for verification of that.
RCMP and BC can now set up road checks at certain points across the province to prevent people from non-essential travel outside of their regions. Just ahead, why experts believe there may be some bumps along the road.
Pfizer has informed us that they will be shipping Canada's doses from Kalamazoo beginning next week.
Instead of coming out of Europe, Canada's Pfizer doses will now be shipped from the U.S. Why the change, and what will it mean for scheduled deliveries?
Somebody has to see something. Somebody knows something. There's beyond a doubt somebody knows something.
It's been more than 7 months since a woman vanished from the streets of downtown Vancouver, and there's still no sign of Chelsea Poorman. The latest on the investigation and how her father is taking things into his own hands.
There are 740 new cases of COVID-19 across the province tonight. 4 more people have died in the last day. 511 people are currently in hospital, with 174 in the ICU. Nearly 1.8 million doses of vaccine has now been administered in BC, and the province says about 40% of people are eligible for their first dose. BC's vaccine supply is getting a big boost next week, so the province's age-based program is expected to kick into high gear. As of today, people 56 or older are allowed to book an appointment after registering on the province's website. As of Sunday, people 54 and up can book an appointment. As of Tuesday, May the 4th, people 52 and up can book. And as of Thursday, May the 6th, people 50 and up can book an appointment for a shot. Canada has pressed pause on rolling out the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine just 2 days after the first shipment of the doses arrived in the country. Health officials made the decision after learning that one of the key substances in the doses was produced at a plant in Baltimore that has drawn red flags in recent weeks. The facility in question had to toss out millions of J&J doses after they became contaminated with some of the ingredients used in AstraZeneca shots that were also being produced on site. Health Canada says it wants to fully investigate the 300,000 doses to make sure they are safe to give to Canadians. There are a few cases of the original COVID-19 in this province. That's according to the latest modeling from the BC Centre for Disease Control. It says 78% of cases identified last week appear to be variants. Vaccination campaigns and tight restrictions are all considered reasons for a recent drop in those types of cases as well. Experts say if the numbers continue to fall and BC's vaccination rates increase, easing some pandemic restrictions could be possible by June.
The message is still clear. Stay local.
BC RCMP can now set up road checks on highway corridors that connect the 3 different regional zones. It's an effort to prevent people from traveling for non-essential reasons outside of their zones, and signs like this one on the side of the highway near the Tsawwassen Ferry Terminal are already up, reminding people to stay local.
If police have reasonable grounds to believe you are about to leave your regional zone or are already traveling outside of your health authority for non-essential purposes, they can direct you to stay within your region or to leave the authority at that time.
If you are stopped at a road check, Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth says police are only allowed to ask for a driver's name, address, and driver's license, any documentation regarding the driver's name and address, and the purpose of the driver's travel. Documentation regarding travel is not required. But a political science expert says there's still gray area when it comes to enforcement.
And they can ask what your business is in terms of where you're heading, but they can't ask for verification of that. So that's going to leave a lot in the hands of police officers in their discretion as to whether or not they believe your story for the purposes of your trip. And I think that could lead to certain problems. Certain groups might get targeted more than others.
Criminal lawyer Kyla Lee says she's pleased that people won't have to provide documentation on the purpose of their travel, and reminds people they're not compelled to answer questions other than the 3 listed.
You don't have to get into a lot of detail. You don't have to provide any documentation to prove that that's the reason for your traveling. If you just say work or for essential reasons, that should be good enough. And you don't have to identify any of the passengers in the vehicle, where you're going to be staying, or any of your plans once you're in the next health region.
There is no authority for pedestrians to be stopped on the streets or for arbitrary inspections or investigations to be conducted by police.
But with a long list of essential travel reasons, what's stopping people from lying to police about why they're traveling?
Nothing really, and it really will come down to whether or not the police officer buys your story.
There's no outright prohibition on police questioning somebody if they see like a kayak or a tent trailer or some other recreational equipment, but you don't have an obligation to answer those questions.
Not complying with the road check requirements or direction given by a police officer could result in a $230 fine, and violating the travel ban is a $575 fine.
There are also other consequences associated with not paying the fine. You can't renew your driver's license. You can't purchase car insurance. So if you think, oh, I'll just get the ticket and I won't pay it, that's going to catch up to you and you're going to find yourself in a much more difficult situation in the future.
At the end of the day, experts say the main message is very clear.
I think the purpose here is the government trying to send us a message not to travel. And I think people are hearing that pretty loudly.
Farnworth says there will be signs giving drivers advance notice before the road checks. The current order will remain in place until May 25th. Marata Fatour, City News.
As of May 3rd, the Canadian supply of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine will come from its manufacturing site in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
For the first time starting next week, Canada's supply of Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine will be coming from the U.S., specifically from a plant in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Up until now, the shots have been coming from Belgium. Procurement Minister Anita Anand confirming the update Friday. She says when it comes to Canada's vaccine delivery schedule, no change is expected. But could this mark a beginning of a new boost from our neighbors to the south? 2 million doses of Pfizer's vaccine set to arrive in Canada each week in May. That jumps to 2.4 million each week in June, as was already in the works, confirms Anand. She says the drug maker informed Canadian officials of their plans to ship the shots out of the U.S. instead of Europe.
From the outset, our contract and Health Canada's authorization of the Pfizer vaccine have allowed for deliveries from both the PERS Belgium and the Kalamazoo, Michigan sites. This provides the supplier with the flexibility to ship vaccines from both locations of production and Canada to receive those shipments seamlessly.
Reuters reports Pfizer is also planning to ship vaccines to Mexico from its U.S. plant. The deliveries abroad will be the first after a Trump-era restriction on dose exports expired at the end of March. And the company says it will use its extra capacity in its American facilities to deliver shots to other countries, as the U.S., a major vaccine producer, continues to make strides with its swift vaccination campaign.
This past week, our average was 2.6 million shots per day. 55% of adult Americans now have at least one shot. Today, 100 million Americans are fully vaccinated.
While Canada, which relies entirely on imported doses, got off to a slow start, vaccinations are picking up, with provinces like Quebec and Ontario set to open up eligibility to all adults by mid to late May.
So far, we've distributed more than 15 million doses of vaccines right across the country. Wednesday, almost 1 million doses arrived in Canada, including our first shipment of the single-dose Janssen vaccine.
Now, when it comes to AstraZeneca, while Canada has received a loan of 1.5 million doses from the U.S., so far, none of the 20 million shots expected from an American plant have shipped.
We are being very aggressive.
That's how Anand described talks with the supplier this week.
In terms of reiterating and stressing the importance of having AstraZeneca vaccines under our bilateral APA in the country as soon as possible.
There's also still the unanswered question of what the White House has planned for up to 60 million AstraZeneca shots being produced in the U.S. that country isn't going to use. Another thing we heard from Anand on Friday, though, she says Canada will receive more than 4 million AstraZeneca doses from what she calls a variety of locations before the end of June. Melissa Duggan, City News.
The deadline has now passed for campers to leave Vancouver's Strathcona Park. They had until 10 o'clock this morning to dismantle their tents. Most Tent City residents complied with the 10 o'clock deadline, and things were relatively peaceful this morning. City and board staff were on hand and started fencing off the area. The encampment had been set up for more than a year. More than 200 people have been moved to indoor housing from the park, but park volunteers still don't appear to be satisfied.
A big concern is that there isn't really a public space where people can shelter in space right now with the closure of this park. The park bylaw has changed now so that people need to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. People on the street are subjected to street sweeps. So there's just no real public place where people can safely shelter in space.
To be honest, I think that along with housing, they should try to do something about people getting off welfare and getting some work. And I know because of COVID, there is a lot less work, but still, it wouldn't hurt to try to get people work plus housing.
Police and neighbors have complained about crime connected to the park, and the Vancouver Fire Department has voiced concerns about dangerous conditions.
Whatever, I'll walk around, I'll car around, I'll do whatever I have to, I'll bike around, I'm not stopping until she's found.
A Vancouver father, desperate to find his missing daughter, has taken things into his own hands. He has moved into this van for the past 3 months, driving around Western Canada trying to find her.
We love her so much, and she's so missed.
25-year-old Chelsea Poorman was last seen on Granville Street in downtown Vancouver on September 6th of last year. She left her apartment at Granville and Davie Streets around midnight and hasn't been seen since. Poorman had just moved to the city to get some help for her mental health. She's described as having round cheeks, friendly brown eyes, and a noticeable limp.
Somebody has to see something. Somebody knows something. There's beyond a doubt somebody knows something.
Michael Kiernan couldn't sit and do nothing while his daughter was still missing. So for the past 3 months, he's driven from Saskatchewan to Alberta and back to BC, handing out flyers and asking people if they've seen Poorman.
I would be going crazy anywhere else. I wouldn't be able to, I know I can't, I just can't focus on anything else but this. So.
Dale Weidman is an inspector in the major crime section with the Vancouver Police Department. In a statement to CityNews, he says police have taken numerous investigative steps, including interviewing several people associated with Ms. Poorman, reviewing relevant banking and cell phone records, conducting an extensive video canvass, and collaborating with Saskatoon police. This investigation remains very active. Kiernan commends the VPD for their hard work, but is adamant he still can't just sit back and do nothing.
I think even if I watched the police knocking on every single door, this is the best way I could probably explain it. If they were to stand here and knock on every single door, I'd probably say, hey, did you leave a poster in the mail? Or hey, did you do this? Or hey, did you do that while you were there? Or, I don't know if it would ever be enough.
Kiernan has a message for anyone who might know something about his daughter's whereabouts.
Please come forward. Absolutely, please come forward. It's, sir.
Anyone with any information on Chelsea Poorman is asked to contact Crime Stoppers or Vancouver Police. In Burnaby, Ashley Burr, City News.
An urgent plea has been made by the City of Vancouver and operators of the Pacific National Exhibition. They need $8 million from the province for the fair to survive the COVID-19 pandemic. Playland was supposed to reopen tomorrow, but those plans were postponed earlier this week at the request of BC's top doctor. Mayor Kennedy Stewart says that support from Ottawa hasn't been enough to protect thousands of jobs as the 111-year-old fair faces losses of $15 million this year alone.
COVID-19 restrictions have taken a significant toll on PNE revenue generation. The outlook is so dire that the PNE, as we now know and love it, could end, despite the City of Vancouver's backstopping the PNE's ever-growing line of credit. With mounting losses due to pandemic-triggered closures in 2020 and 2021, the PNE requires $8 million in emergency aid from the province if it is going to continue to generate special memories for generations of British Columbians.
BC's tourism minister has not been available for comment, but issued a statement confirming work continues at all 3 levels of government to make sure the PNE doesn't fall victim to COVID-19. A 96-year-old Vancouver woman who sent $20,000 to the UK after being scammed will be getting her money back. The woman had sent the money after getting a call from fraudsters who convinced her to send it in small bills hidden between 2 books. The woman's nephew found out and called Vancouver police, who were able to get UK law enforcement to intercept the books and the money.
So this is a really unique situation where, we have been talking lately about frauds, especially the cryptocurrency ones, where it is very hard to track suspects down and at times really hard to get the money back. In this case, we don't have anyone arrested yet, as it is very difficult. A lot of people hide their names, whether it's on the phone or on the computer behind an IP address. But in this case, we were able to get the money back, and I think that's what the victim really cared about, was her money.
The VPD is asking anyone who may be suspicious about money transfers or withdrawals to call the police or speak to a trusted family member. Vancouver's news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. And your next edition of City News is later on tonight at 11 o'clock. We'll see you then. Have a good night.